Black Moon Lilith enters Scorpio. Black Moon Lilith enters Scorpio. This will last for 9 months. 9 months. For 9 months, the snake is attempting to swallow the egg. Let's start right there. There's an 8th house matter, or matters, plural, that have been obvious to you. And there are some things that are not so obvious to you in 8th house themes. They are burdens that requires your resilience and your courage to subject it to transformation, release, empowerment, resilience. What are the 8th house themes? The 8th house themes includes those matters and affairs where you are fully vested. You are fully vested. You can't just simply walk away without pain. You can't just simply walk away without a considerable impact. It includes matters of the heart that are not so easy to explain. It's complicated, as they say. Situationships, layers and layers of cords and ties, covenants, contracts, agreements that are fully active. The 8th house is where your 2nd house comes together with the other person's 2nd house, or the 2nd house of an institution. It's the means by which you expand or stabilize your resources and things that you value. So it's a mutual standing with others or with other institutions. You're putting something into it that requires either blood, sweat, or tears. It will not be less. It will not be less in the 8th house. The 8th house is where difficult processes, procedures, burdens have to be moved. And if they are overlooked, if they are neglected, you will surely feel considerable consequences. It is not a place where negligence can go unanswered. It is not a place where irresponsibility, lack of accountability, lack of duty, focus, attentiveness, maturity, all of these attributes and faculties is what is essential to having harmony in the 8th house. It is not a house for children. It is a house for mature matters that really press on the psyche, that test the patience, the endurance, the psychological resilience. This is where we see death. We have to part ways with those who we love. This is where we suffer losses, and it could take considerable amount of time to heal or recover from those effects. The eighth house is where I invested in you. Well, you also invested in me. And depending on you, and you're also depending on me. I rely on you, you're relying on me. And this is where marriage evolves into the active of its contract. The contract is secured at the seventh house. The contract is fulfilled at the eighth house. Let's understand that. I remember the years where I struggled for many years to try to understand the eighth house, as well as the 12th house. And I was never able to find someone to explain it to me in ways that were not poetic and full of, quite frankly, bullshit, regurgitation, things that don't help me to understand where do I see the eighth house in my immediate life. There's no passion, there's no spirit when people talk. I couldn't connect to such teachings. But in my desperation, trying to make sense of myself and make sense of my life, the eighth house happened to be one of the most important houses to come to understand. And just as it's difficult to understand it and explaining it through astrology, it is difficult to understand and explain it through the inner self, where I am and what this means, what's going on here. Scorpio rules this house, and so does Pluto. And for that, partially Mars. The eighth house is after the honeymoon, where the business has to begin. This is where power is a process. And this is where authority meets authority and power meets power. It's not for the weak. So, one of the things that I'm getting at with Black Moon Lilith is that we will be addressing power struggles. Power struggles. Wherever there are power struggles, there could be a lack of clarity and authority. The lack of clarity and authority with the self and with others. And what's not to be excused from that is whether or not we respect authority in the self or respect authority standing before us. That also makes considerable conflict when it comes to moving power. Power struggles. Authority must move power. If authority is not moving power, it is oppression. Understand, it is oppression. This is what we should understand about the eighth house. The eighth house is a place where we need to have trust. There has to be trust. There has to be transparency. The algorithm of Scorpio, it does not trust so easily. Scorpio is challenged to trust. And it's simply because Scorpio has a very deep understanding of human nature and psychology. And with that being said, it understands that every one of us has a potential to be very dark. We have potential to betray, to wrong, to abuse, to be unjust, to be cruel, knowingly and unknowingly. Every one of us. Scorpio is aware of this. So Scorpio is never surprised at what happens. Scorpio is never surprised at what is found out. But Scorpio is also controlling. So Scorpio can suffer when it comes to learning how to let go at the moment of disillusionment. The moral compass of Scorpio is intense. Scorpio adheres to a very strong constitution. And as I'm speaking about Scorpio, all of us have a Scorpio placement, and there is where I'm speaking about you. If you have a Scorpio stellium, this is surely applying to your reality. Now, back to the thought I was finishing. Scorpio has a deep trust in its own instincts, and the instincts are tied to its deep awareness of human nature. So nothing can ever be a surprise, but Scorpio attaches itself to its own theory of how truth and justice should manifest in another person's behavior, of how it should manifest in a situation or circumstance. And when it does not turn out that way, Scorpio can be wrathful and unforgiving. And this is partly because Scorpio struggles to see others for who they are. Scorpio sees itself and knows itself and takes the assumption that if I am this way, if I'm able to weigh and judge this way myself, if I am able to take into consideration the rights of others, the scales of justice concerning others, the moral compass that hits accuracy every time, where I never betray the moral compass, adhering to a strong institution within my inner being. If I am this way, then surely the other person is also the other way. And that is the big mistake of Scorpio. And that's why Scorpio struggles to forgive, the assumption that their nature is the same as others' nature, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So Scorpio refuses to forgive. And in Scorpio's refusal to forgive, there are inner illnesses, diseases, terminal illnesses, cancers, psychological issues, depression, high blood pressure. Many illnesses ferment in the soul, in the body of Scorpio for these reasons. They get sick very deeply when they get sick. Understand? They also attract these themes of betrayal because it's what they tend to expect. Scorpio can perceive betrayal, while the reality is not betrayal. Scorpio can see mutiny, although the facts can reveal that it was not mutiny. Scorpio can look at a situation and see for itself, this person wronged me, this person abandoned me, this person stabbed me in the back. But there's so much more to consider than what Scorpio would conclude. And this is where Scorpio struggles. I'm still talking about you and me at the 8th house and at our Scorpio expression in the natal birth chart. Understand? Focus with me. I'll give you an example. One day, and I told this story before, I'm a carpenter, a union carpenter, and I was working at a nuclear power plant in a southern state some years back. There was a friend of mine who was speaking on the phone with his children, with his daughter. I believe it was his daughter. And he was very angry. He couldn't eat his food or anything. You know, he was yelling on the phone and walking in circles. And I could tell he was on the phone with someone who he loved, because we only speak that way to people who we love. They get us round us up like that. So we sat together and we were sitting at the same table to eat. And he turned to me holding his, he looked at me and then he looked back down and he was just holding his head. He couldn't eat. And he said, I don't understand why people always lie to me. Why does my family always lie to me? My wife lies to me. My kids lie to me. Everybody lies to me. Why can't nobody tell me the truth? And I didn't want to ruin his day, but I wanted to be honest with him, in a way that was as painless as possible. And what I said to him is, it could be that truth is very difficult for you to manage. And because of that, people don't want to burden you beyond what you show you can bear. You could be overbearing when it comes to the truth. Angry, aggressive, losing control, facial expressions and behavior alterations that shows and reveals suffering, intensity. And naturally, people want to avoid that. So it's only natural that somebody's going to lie to you in their mind to protect you and also to protect themselves, because you could be overbearing. When you are overbearing, you get lied to. And it's really that simple. And this is what it is with Scorpio when it comes to all of us at that Scorpio placement and also at the 8th house. Can we handle the truth? Can we handle the truth? Don't lie to me, just tell me the truth. Is that really you? Are you really like that? Are you? We like to say things that are fancy catchphrases that we heard online. But when it comes down to reality, are you really like that? Where you're mature enough to hear the truth. Do you really want me to tell you the truth? Are you sure you just want the truth? You want me to be honest? How many times have you heard that just before somebody fell all apart? Now there's a divorce, a breakup, a fallout, a fight, somebody gets shot, somebody gets stabbed, NYPD outside. The family split right down the middle. The kids suffer. But look how we beg to hear the truth. Look how we beg to hear the truth. Anytime we're dealing with Scorpio or Pluto, I need you to bring to mind resilience. Resilience. And I need you to think on this wise, among other things and among things that you yourself realize. I need you to keep this in your pocket. Scorpio is that algorithm that uncovers, that reveals from underground. In other words, truth that has been suppressed, truth that has been put away, that has been hidden, truth that has been ignored or overlooked. Moments of truth as well. And these truths can include a glance of your shadow self, acknowledgement of red flags that you see in someone else, acknowledging it, not looking away, pretending like you didn't see it, avoiding the conversations or meetings that moves power in a productive direction, in a constructive direction. We get avoidant with these things. We start running away. We close our eyes. We hide. We pretend like we don't see it because there's something on the other side that we really want to be true. We want it to be true so bad. Please make my reality true. I don't want the truth to be true. I want my delusion. I want my idea to be true about this person, about this situation, about myself. But Scorpio insists, Pluto insists on behalf of Scorpio, you're going to look at the truth. Yes, you are. You're going to examine it. You got to take a look at it. And what we tend to find is something that we already see, we already know, but we select it to not acknowledge it. We select it to underplay it. Think about how someone says something or does something, or an institution, organization, some type of commitment or affiliation or tie that you have to something outside yourself. The reality is revealed through disillusionment. A reality that comes to challenge and confront the ideal that you covet, the delusion that you covet, the wish that you hold against what is true and reasonable. And here it is. Now you're forced to deal with it, to face it. And a mistake that we make is we look at this as a tragedy that means, oh, it's all over. Woe is me. This is terrible. This is bad. No good can come out of this. Why would something like this happen to good old me, innocent old me? I'm a good person. I'm a nice person. I treat people right. I do good. I don't hurt nobody. Right? But that's based on the idea that something is happening to you. No, it's happening for you. There's many things that we don't muster the courage to deal with properly. We cower away from Scorpio themes. We cower and run away from Pluto themes. We get scared because power is moving. Power. And we feel powerless until we understand the underlying dynamics of power that's being offered through transformation. And what are these steps? The moment of disillusionment comes. What do? We have to surrender and accept what is true. Accept what is true. This has nothing to do with accepting behaviors or accepting circumstances and conditions. You are accepting what you see, what you verify, what is evidently true. You're accepting the evidence. This is about how we relate to evidence. Scorpio Pluto, it grows us, it transforms us through evidence that hurts us. Evidence that affects us deeply. Evidence that tests the thresholds of our power. The control limitations that we have. Evidence. Based on this evidence, can you go forward? Based on this evidence now, what does this mean for your relationship? Based on this evidence, what does this mean for you and how you were living? Based on this evidence, what now is your view or idea, your intention about this career path, this lifestyle? It's when evidence comes and it destroys the delusion that you held. It pulverizes it. It goes against the delusional ideal that you painted in your head, and you committed to it. You held on to it. You gripped it tight. And now that truth comes, you struggle to let go of it. And that's where the suffering begins. There is no suffering except where there is attachment. If someone is suffering, they're attached. Scorpio struggles to let go, and it causes suffering. How are we doing with moments of disillusionment that requires us to let go so that we could surrender and transform? This is not the lazy antidote of, girl, you need to block them, you need to delete them, you need to walk away. No, I'm talking about letting go of ideas, preconceived notions, thoughts, thinking patterns, behaviors. Letting go of what you preferred to be true. Letting go of what you thought was true. Letting go of what you bullheadedly want to be true. Letting go of what you feel entitled to uphold as true, even though you know it's not. Against all evidence, against all truth and evidence, you still want something else to be true that fits your sense of entitlement. And the suffering is prolonged. It's prolonged. What better prayer with Scorpio? Father God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. Grant us the courage to change the things that we can. Grant us the wisdom to know the difference. Knowing what you can change and knowing what you can't change. What you can't change, you surrender peacefully, having acceptance. Acceptance. I accept that this is evidence. I accept that this is true. I accept that this is reality. I accept it. Now I know how I must transform, how I must transmute, how I must shift, strategize. But I'm not going to attempt to change something that I do not have the power to change. I'm going to focus on what I do have the ability to change. And I can muster all the courage I need to do exactly that. Black Moon Lilith is moving through all of these themes, and Black Moon Lilith is going to serve as a shaking up. Anything suppressed, Black Moon Lilith is going to antagonize that suppressed theme until it comes all the way to surface, it comes all the way out, and you have no choice but to deal with it, to face it, to get down and get real, to change our cowardly ways. Black Moon Lilith through Scorpio is going to bring up the bottom line, the reality of a lot of sexual situations out here. And this comes back to situationships. You're in the bed together, totally confused. Every day that you wake up together, you don't know what you're doing or why. You barely know each other. And some you hate each other. Some are just surviving together. But there's no love and there's no like. It's just tolerating someone in your home. You don't want to make too much noise, because whoever's in the 8th house with you, you're codependent upon that person. You need that person and they need you. But what are you going to do about the matters of the heart that seems to be so complicated to address and clarify? Somewhere We tend not to accept what's true about ourselves or someone else or the situation that you're in. Is this healthy for me? Does this reflect a person who loves or respects themselves, who honors herself? And I don't mean to ask this question rhetorically so that it can enhance your narcissism, because a lot of us get into narcissism when it comes to that. We get arrogant and we get narcissistic, and we think we're on a moral high horse, and everybody's beneath us. But truth be told, the same person who you're painting as a villain, the same person who you paint to be someone who's so lesser than you, and you're so evolved, you're so conscious, your third eye is open, all your chakras are flowing well. You eat rabbit food and vegetables, you meditate on your yoga mat, and you think you're better than the person who didn't ascend through all of those theologies. I would think again. Just because you know how to read tarot cards and you eat vegetables and you have the assumption that your third eye is open, you know astrology, this stuff can roll off of your tongue. Does that mean that you're wiser than the man who does it? Does it mean that you are more evolved than the man who does it or the woman who does it? No, it doesn't. It does not mean that. You should be more humble. I should be more humble. We should not assume these things. How many marriages have fallen apart under the excuse of, I outgrew so-and-so. I evolved past so-and-so. So-and-so didn't want to grow. A lot of people is out here capping when it comes to that. Understand? Using punchline Instagram wording to justify mutiny, betrayal, dishonesty, corruption. Let's not do that. Look a little closer at the person you chose. Look a little closer at who you're in the 8th house with. And I'm not talking about 5th house situations. I'm not talking about 7th house situations. I said 8th house. The 5th house is when you're still... The 5th house is where you don't know each other's last name, barely. You don't know each other's life story. But there's this Venus electricity running through the body for each other. It's an excitement. You show each other smiles in all your teeth. Everything's all good. You're still dating. You didn't, stand in the bathroom while the other person's taking a shit yet. You understand? The honeymoon. And the 7th house is where the background of you and the background of the other person has now become known and understood. And a contract is present. This is what we agree. So if you were called the 5th house dating, the 7th house courtship, and the 8th house marriage. That's the appropriate way to understand the evolution of relationships is 5th house, 7th house, the 8th house in that wise. You are in the 8th house when you are invested, when you're paying bills together, when you're in debt to each other, when you see that there's a mutual need in which you survive together. You have come together upon the survival instinct, among other things. But it's the survival instinct that fuses you together. We have to survive. Why not do it together? That's 8th house. So, Black Moon Lilith is going to have us to investigate where there's confusion and situationship themes going on. It's a lot of fucking, a lot of casual sex, understand? A lot of dick sucking, all kind of things. And There's very little clarity, clarification, understanding, peace, respect, stability. And should I say respect again? Or maybe one more time, respect? You know what? I'm going to say it one more time. There's very little respect. Very little. Cheating, assumptions, the coming together of half-raised people, people who were not raised right, people who were raised by only mothers and aunties and sisters, no men in sight their whole life, getting advice from single, bitter girlfriends and aunties and mamas. A toxic casserole. Understand, it's a toxic casserole. And we're going to roll up our sleeves and clean it up. We're going to roll up our sleeves and clean it up. And we're going to relieve ourselves of the suffering that we have, attached to things that we think we need, but we don't. People that we think we need, but we don't. Opportunities, circumstances, institutions, organizations that we think we need, but we really don't. Black Moon Lilith is going to produce the examination that reveals that. It's going to stir the pot of Scorpio. It's going to get Scorpio active. Understand? It's going to get Scorpio active. And Black Moon Lilith is going to make sure that you are honest down to your core nature. That your deepest, darkest expression of your nature is leading every decision and every discovery. And it has to be your deepest, darkest nature, because we can't make progress, revolutionary progress in Scorpio with face mask on. Because remember, Scorpio is the X-ray. Pluto is the X-ray. This is to see through lies and deception. This is to get to the truth, to uncover. You understand? So we can't do this with face masks. There has to be full transparency. And full transparency of the self is through Black Moon Lilith. That is the epitome of self-transparency. Black Moon Lilith holds the shadows of ourself. The parts of ourself that do not have light, illumination, that we could be proud of in light of the social or societal agreements. This is the part of the self that has to be incorporated into advocating for what we want and what we need, how we need it, what we ought to be doing, what should be included in our destiny, what should be a part of the design of our new journey in life. Black Moon Lilith has to do that because we can't have the superficial aspects of the self, the shallow aspects of the self, making these decisions. It has to be the deep, dark aspects of the self that takes these things into consideration. Who you are when nobody's looking. Who you are when you snort a line of cocaine and nobody's looking. Yeah, that person. That person has to make these decisions. Now, let me go through this step again so that we remember. Make it like a formula. Scorpio algorithm goes on the wise. Something happens that I didn't want to happen. Listen, something happens that I didn't want to happen. Right? Two things are happening. The reality of what is disturbing me because it's opposing the reality that I wanted to uphold, which was delusion. And this is what makes it a moment of disillusionment, okay? You walk in a house and your wife got a 13-inch dick down her mouth, right? You didn't want that to happen. Yeah, that's the last thing you wanted to happen. You're heartbroken. So you have to accept the reality, the truth at hand, the truth of who she shows herself to be, the truth of what the relationship status really is, the truth about yourself, and the fact that you were conditioning yourself to accept and believe through the red flags and the lies and the deceit. So there are many truths that occur at one time. And this is why it's not a fast process. And you have to reflect and get down to the bottom of, where have I been delusional? Where have I been self-deceptive? Where have I been resisting the truth? Where have I been promoting my own delusion? Where have I been overlooking the obvious? Where have I been betraying the evidence? You understand? And so now I have to accept the truth, not reject it. To reject the truth, you get set on fire in hot anger, and you attempt to change the truth through fighting, through arguing, through violence, okay? Through overwhelming emotional actions. You attempt to change the truth. That is the self through the channel of anger, which is the channel of justice. You're attempting to restore justice by changing the situation by the principles and laws of chaos, okay? Because only chaos can break down order to change the order that is. So an order of a reality is presented to you, and you attempt to go through the nature to present chaos, okay? Through the fire expression of justice called anger. And now you're exploding because you're attempting to change a reality, and that's not something you have the power to do. You have to accept what it is. You have to accept it. That's who she chose to be. This is who she wants to be. And there's a reason for that. And I will not know every reason today, but there are reasons for that. There may be some reasons that I'm responsible for. There may be some reasons that I'm not responsible for, but there are reasons. And you're not going to have all those answers in one moment. You're also dealing with a human. And if you put a person on a pedestal expecting that they're not capable of making mistakes, of making very poor decisions, of doing good and doing bad, of betraying you or wronging you, you are delusional. And you put the person on a pedestal that you shouldn't have. So now you're having a hard time accepting the reality. You are a snake that's trying to eat a giant egg, and it seems impossible to you. This is how Scorpio algorithm works. Understand? So once we accept the truth, we release the delusion. When we release the delusion, that which we wanted to be true, now we have protected ourselves from suffering. Now we will not suffer because we let go of the attachment to that, okay? Now you have protected yourself from suffering. Now, what's next? You have to transform. You have to transmute. Transform, transmute, regenerate. Transform, transmute, regenerate. Okay? Which means I have to transform my consciousness. You see? I have to transform my consciousness. I have to reconfigure my consciousness to include acceptance of these realities. And that takes time. Transformation. Understand? So this is part of what we're going to be doing to get right. Going back to the point about sexual matters. Here in America, we have a hot mess going on. Lifestyles of fornication and adultery. I'm not going to go into a long tangent about it, okay? But it's causing a lot of problems. And we have said that it's okay, and it's not. We've agreed to it. And there are consequences that last for many generations. And we have to make up our mind on whether or not we are indeed creators. Whether or not the power really is in our hands as the people to decide, Is this a reality of society, of the world, of my family, community, myself, that I'm going to continue on, that I'm going to promote or enable any longer? Promiscuous culture, fornication, adulteration. Is this what I'm going to continue condoning, enabling, and promoting, being a part of? There are complaints upon complaints. He didn't do this, she didn't do that, yada, yada, yada. But when you get down to the bottom of it and you ask the simple questions, are you married? No, but, well, okay, well, you have nothing to complain about because you're not married. If you're married, yeah, you can complain. But if you're not married, you can't complain because neither of you have the wisdom, the sense, the discipline, the self-respect to place your intimacy in an honorable position, in a respectable position. And when I say married, I don't mean going down to the courthouse and signing a documentation with the state. What I mean is you have made it publicly known that this is a person who you are creating and sustaining a family life with in the community, and you will honor it and respect it. That's what I'm talking about. Where your family and that person's family have now come together as one. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? When I say that, when I say married. But these situationships and just, it's a hot mess and no good can come of it. Insecurity, confusion, drama, kids born out of wedlock. And oh boy, we could talk about that for hours, but I'm not. We're ironing out and we're fixing the fact that we are realizing, okay, I've been doing this to myself. There are layers of confusion and drama constantly, year after year, decade after decade. And I thought it was okay because those before me and those before them and those before them were doing it. It's all I know when I look around me. We have to stop using that as the criterion of judgment. What people before us did and what everybody else is doing. That's not a criterion of judgment. What does your wisdom say? Don't betray your wisdom. We have to clean up all the situationships. Oh, I'll just do it this time. We have to clean up that mess. There's all type of bodily fluids, sexual organs, mixing and mixing and mixing. There are STDs galore. It is a mess in America, man. All the girls in America, I mean, not all, but majority of the females in America are just ran through. They all ran through and used up. It's a nasty cesspool of people sleeping with each other, behind each other. It's nasty, man. It's unclean. And what comes with that are emotional demands, expectations, assumptions, power struggles and control, abuse, manipulation, deceit, betrayal, abandonment, hurt and pain that it splits and divides families. It alienates fathers and mothers and children. It curses families. It generates hatred and animosity. There's nothing good that's coming out of it. I'll leave that there because I think we really understand that well. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about Scorpio energies because Black Moon Lilith will be in Scorpio for 9 months, and these are the type of themes that we're going to have to go over. Let's prepare ourselves. Prepare ourselves, first of all, by not having assumptions about people or situations. Knowing that underground there are always secrets. There are always secrets under the earth that can be revealed about the self, about other people, about a situation. And we have to be ready to accept a challenge to what we think is true. A challenge. The other thing is that if we expect others to be honest with us, We can't be overbearing. If we're overbearing, we could expect to always be lied to because you can't handle the truth. You fall all apart. You start acting a donkey. You're childish. You're immature. Yeah, you're not going to be told the truth. We're not ready to hear the truth if we're always going to try to change what the truth is. Acceptance, 9 out of 10 times, comes with truth. Acceptance. We usually don't have the power to change what we find to be the truth. We like to play in the 5th house. We like to play in the 7th house because that's playing house. But in the 8th house, everybody get quiet. You don't want to participate. It's the other person's responsibility to manage and mend and heal the relationship, not yours. You just walk off and leave, or you push pass the blame. Secrets could stand to be revealed over these 9 months. Secrets. And a lot of these secrets are going to point back to our refusal to acknowledge our own shadows. Scorpio. Our own shadows concerning our sexuality, our own shadows concerning how we wish to relate to power and how we have been relating to power. Power hungry, power struggles, domination, control, refusing to respect the boundaries and autonomy of others. That goes with Scorpio. Ingratitude, greed. Scorpio infamously upholds the expression, I desire. Nothing is ever good enough. A challenge for Scorpio is that Scorpio is always in the past, and if not in the past, they're in the future. They're in the past attached to past traumas, pains, disappointments, things that they preferred to not be true, trying to change it into truth. They're stuck in the past with a bag of tools, trying to make truth turn into something that they want it to be instead of what it actually is. They don't want to accept it. And Scorpios run into the future for what they're expecting, self-prophesying of betrayal, deceit, and mutiny. The Scorpio would do well to be present, pulling off of Taurus energy, which is the balance of Scorpio, the counterbalance of Scorpio. As Taurus says, I have. And that's a statement of being present. You have when you are present. I desire, you are looking ahead into the future, longing for what you can take into yourself, what you can experience, what you can have. And that is eternal. Only the dirt of the grave can satisfy that. You are never satisfied. Nothing is ever good enough. More. You can't be present with your accomplishments to celebrate or the abundance that is with you in the present. I desire. You are ambitious to a fault. To a fault. Extremes in ambition. Ambition that leads into crime, criminology, that leads into deceit, criminal activity, oppression, underground works. Ambitions that sells the virtues, ambitions that sells the morals, ambition that sells the soul, ambition that trades peace for attainment. Ambition. And what is this coming back to? Reconciliation at the South Node Virgo. I want to be perfect. I want to be known as perfect. I want to look like I have it all together, but I don't. That goes for the relationship status too. All of these things. So there's a real cleanup coming. And we can look forward to that, knowing that it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So the ground is going to be turned up, and what has been suppressed is going to be made clear and apparent to you. And this is the time to take advantage of that, to transform from the depth of the self. And from there, we can have access to power that is deeply rooted and established in the most authentic expression of the self. All of the tiptoeing around the obvious, all of the tiptoeing around the truth, things are going to be different as Black Moon Lilith passes through Scorpio for 9 months. Now we're going to find the resilience, the courage, the boldness to actually address matters that we first avoided, to get down to the bottom of matters that we hesitated to. And we're going to feel the resilience. Black Moon Lilith is going to connect you with Scorpio's algorithm of spirit. And in doing so, what that accomplishes for you is to have the boldness and the strength, the resilience, the patience, the perseverance, the staying power to look death in the face without flinching. To look at any crisis that has to be, that has to pass, that has to happen in order to get to the truth, in order to get at the revolution of the self. You will not hesitate. You are willing to look death in the face to get there. This is where we are at. You want all the smoke for the truth. You want all the smoke to get down to what is real. Collectively, women's rights, protests, marches, demands are on the way for the next 9 months. I haven't heard any headlines yet, but because I know astrology, I know it's on the way. There are going to be some type of women's rights demands that are going to accelerate over the next 9 months. And it's not going to be something light. It could be something that's not making it to the press. It also could be something that is overwhelming in society. Because Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio, this certainly brings up the divine feminine going to war for its rights. So we could expect some of that type of energy to be going on. Remember, secrets are going to be revealed. Harsh realities are going to have to be faced. And this is the time to have a good attitude about what we're going to move through to get down to the real truth in our life. And to make sure that our shadow self is not exiled from ourself, that we incorporate it into the self and take ownership of the shadow self, knowing that there's a place for the shadow. Understand? Where we're at so far in the new timeline, after all the drama that was inevitable because of the Mars retrograde Cancer, we're at the place now where we don't want to make too much noise. We don't want to step on toes. Step on toes. Step on toys. That's a parent, phrase right there. We don't want to step on toes and be offensive. We're fermenting frustration within because we can't seem to figure out, where does my shadow belong in this? I have a shadow. And I'm not okay with being treated like I'm not supposed to have a shadow. The shadow is part of me. If you see something good about me, yes, there's something that's not so good, and I'm not good at hiding it. I don't want to hide it. I could dress it up. I can manage it to where it does less damage. But I'm not willing to hide my shadow anymore. I'm going to bring my shadow out because guess what? I know you got a shadow too. Every person has a shadow. If you're standing in front of the people with light, you also have to accept that every person also has shadows. It's human. It's not taboo to have a shadow. There are things about us that are the exact opposite, the polarizing opposite, or even the dual, the dual value of the good that we would want to celebrate in each other. But that doesn't necessarily make us a bad person, evil, so on and so forth. It's simply a shadow, the absence of light, the blocking of light. The light that we have, it casts a shadow. So if there's an illuminated aspect of your personality, of your intelligence, of your mindset, of your character, of how you show up in relationships or business, a shadow is being cast off that same light at the same time, and you're hiding it. You're fighting and you're sweating at the head, hoping to God that that shadow doesn't come out to blow your cover, because guess what? We all want to be so perfect. We want to look so perfect to everybody. Cookie cutter, cookie cutter. Homeowners Association. It's like we're being Karens to ourselves. You're being a Karen to yourself. And because you're being a Karen to yourself, you're being a Karen to other people. That goes back again to South Node Virgo. You're not perfect and you never will be. So get moving, get creating. Accept that you have a shadow and let that shadow drag right behind you, complementing the light. Find a job for your shadow. Find a role for your shadow to place that does others no harm.